Hello.
Mr. Brown.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
Not too bad, man. Just hanging out waiting for your call.
Nice. I love it when you hang out and wait for my call.
You gotta let me know when we start recording, yeah?
Oh, we're already recording, buddy. I go live right when I call you.
I figured as much.
You got any plans for this evening?
At the moment, I'm just laying down, just chilling out, relaxing.
Nice. Nice. Whereabouts in the city are you? Where do you live?
I am in the east end of the city.
East
So
End.
not quite the downtown core, and definitely not Scarborough.
Are you in that, like, the old beaches that we would call it?
Not quite the beaches either, so I'm sort of in that little Bermuda Triangle right in the center.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
Call it God's blind spot.
there you go.
um,
But,
okay, so just to start off easy, let you know what I'm doing. I don't know if you've heard any of the episodes yet, but I'm just trying to get a brief history of our culture, not just Toronto, but the whole drum and bass culture, and understand where the guys that we listen to began. So before I dive into all of my hard questions, let me start with something easy and ask, what was the last song that you were actually listening to in your free time?
the last song that I was listening to,
Yeah.
I guess it would. Shoot, that's interesting. I don't know. Something by Depeche Mode. I know that much.
Awesome. That's awesome. If I could tell my listeners, I do give these guys the questions beforehand. So either Mr. Brown here has not read the questions and is going in raw, or he's forgotten everything I said I was going to ask.
Probably. I'm just chilling right now. So I don't remember when you. First of all, I didn't know when you were gonna call, so I can't recall when the last time I was listening to some music casually that I should say. I should make a mental note because Aaron's gonna ask me this one. So the fact that I was able to give you Depeche Mode is pretty good, man, considering my age. So
I love that you're into Depeche Mode. I have to say, one of the few 80s bands that I say is awesome. Like, bands that survived the 80s to me, you got to say Depeche Mode, Duran Duran. I like a lot of industrial type stuff. Like, are you into a lot of the 80s sound?
I am. Whereas a lot of people, I guess, sort of into drum and bass came from. I mean, I would, I'm speculating obviously, but I would say a lot of people came in from listening to hip hop. I came in from the alternative industrial, where I listened to a lot of, you know, Pet Shop Boys or anything that was like considered now retro 80s or I don't know, Ministry, Front 242, Nine Inch Nails, that kind of stuff. That's where I came from actually. So it was kind of an interesting transition if you think about it, because before I was listening to drum and bass, it was Rotterdam. So if you think about the bridge from industrial to Rotterdam, or hardcore, it's not that different. So to me, it made sense. It was a natural progression over into the music. You know, Rotterdam after a while became really annoying, and then it slowed down. To me, I was more exposed to the hardcore sound, which then sort of morphed into happy hardcore or versions of it, and then jungle, and then it was kind of a zigzag pattern for me because right around that time as well, I was listening to a lot of Beastie Boys and Cypress Hill and things like that.
Yeah, no,
It's kind of all over the place.
I'm learning a lot while I'm talking to people like yourself, in that I experienced these musics, but I wasn't educated in what I was hearing, and that I was watching it evolve. I personally identify Rotterdam and Jungle as two separate musics that had no correlation to each other. And that's because I come from post the era of their incumbents. I wasn't there when they began.
Right.
But I remember Dominic Spock. I was actually just talking to I don't know. So I was just talking to somebody about the Army of Hardcore party, and how amazing the sound was versus the drum and bass. First drum and bass party I went to was the Cyrus 6 year with Daft Punk or whatever. And
Okay.
I said it wasn't even the music at first for me. It was the culture. It was the scene. It was the people that I met at the hardcore party were just not my type of folk, if you will. But
Right.
the Jungleists, it was like I didn't know the music yet, but I loved the people. I was like, I want to be a part of this community. I want to be a part of this family. These are my kind of people. Can you
Right.
do you relate with what I'm saying?
I guess sort of in the respect of I was never really. I guess I didn't go to clubs to socialize. I went to clubs to listen to music pre-rave, and then when I went to raves, I was always at the front staring at the DJs. So I was never really, in that sense, a raver. I mean, you'd go with a crew. That did happen, but for me, a lot of the times I went by myself because my circle of friends, they all listened. Like I came from another, like the other side of what I listened to was a lot of ska, Motown, like reggae, things like that from the mod sort of rude boy skinhead sort of subculture, because that's where I kind of grew up and around those guys. So those people, when I migrated over into going to raves, they they weren't having any of it, right? But for me, it was never really about the social aspects. So I didn't mind going. So when I went by myself, you didn't have anyone to chill out with. You stood at the front. You stared at the DJs. And for me, one of the first DJs I saw was Dominic. And watching him play, I mean, I always said you could have headphones on, listening to a documentary about why bees are like dying, and watch Dominic, and you're still going to be completely enthralled by what he does, because he is absolutely the best. And if you ask anybody, I guess, really, that's been around for more than 20 years and ask them who Dominic is, they're going to give him a hat tip because he is that good. So for me, it was the style, it was the energy about what they were doing behind the decks, not necessarily what was going on the other side. But I may not have answered your question there, but
No, you went fine, James.
hopefully I did.
One thing I will say about Dominic, and I hope to have him on the show. He was one of two DJs that I got so nervous about before I had to MC for him that I just got so inebriated that I did such a horrible job. And there's two that I have in my book. Capital J was one, and it was because it was my first time going on. It was Marcus and Capital J at Milano's back in like 2002. And I remember I got way too loaded, and I did a horrible job. And then the second was DJ Dominic coming on the DCS 905 show, and I remember Ty just getting so pissed at me, like, dude, what was that? And I'm like, I was nervous, I'm sorry. The guy's a legend. I walked around with his mixtape when I was like 16 years old, playing it on.
For sure.
Honestly, I used to carry a little boombox on my knapsack, and I was one of those jerks on the subway playing his music so the whole car could hear it. And
you were that guy.
I was that asshole, right? And I used to walk around with that tape, man, and I was saying to Z the other day, I'm like, I played that thing until it didn't play no more. That Army of Hardcore, Dominic versus Spock, it was amazing. But I don't want to go too much on Dominic. I want to ask you about your first. We were just kind of talking about it. Can you tell me about your first rave experience?
I guess the first actual full-on rave I went to was a New Year's Eve show, Pleasure Force 94, 95. That's Cinespace. So I guess 94 was when I started, sort of tail end of 93, but more so 94. But that New Year's Eve was the first full-on rave I went to. That was, I mean, it's on YouTube. You want to go take a look at that party. It was incredible. I was telling the story recently, actually. You stand in line for like up to 5 hours in the freezing cold with no jacket because you left it in the car because you figure you're going to be in a hot warehouse. You finally walk into this room and you hear the music that normally you listen to at a moderate level for the most part through headphones, and suddenly it's on a massive sound system and you're in a room with like thousands and thousands of people, lasers and lights, massive stages, and everybody's on this positive vibe. It's a completely different experience, and it hooked me. And I'm like, that's it. This is what I'm going to do for like ever, and here we are.
Well, and the thing is, just hearing you describe it, it's hypnotic. I can totally empathize with that first feeling of, like you say, the music for the first time being at a level that just, you could feel it before because you're an artist. You hear music, you feel it, but you feel it in a different way than when the bass literally shakes you, when you walk in.
Drum and bass is always like that, though. It's not like something you can play for your coworkers on your headphones and be like, yo, check this out, or play a YouTube clip. You have to feel it. You have to go in. I mean, like, after that party, I mean, like I said, I was hooked. If it was, anything that was drum and bass related, I was there. You know, I mean, I would follow Medicine Muffin, Everfresh, Marcus, Mystical, Sniper, Medicine Muffin, you name it. Like, all those guys, like, back then, they were the guys, and I would stand front and center and just stare at them and watch them and study everything they did.
Yeah, no, that I definitely can relate to as an artist, as an MC. I used to go up and watch Catty Cat or Shubba when he came. I remember watching Shubba when he came to town, and I would do what you did. I'd go right to the front of the stage, and I wasn't even necessarily listening to them because I knew the tape was going to come out. I could hear what they were saying later. I wanted to watch how they stood. I wanted to see how they held the microphone. I wanted to see how they interacted with the crowd, and I tried to absorb every aspect of what was occurring so I could mimic it. As a matter of fact, one of the things I used to do was I'd plug my ear when I was emceeing, and not because I couldn't hear myself, but because I saw the other MCs doing that. And I'm like, okay, so I'm supposed to plug my ear while I do this. And then, here's the funny part though. When I finally went to do my first real live show and I had a monitor blasting at me, I went, oh shit, this is why they do that, because you can't hear what you're doing unless you do this. You know what I mean? So I guess I was mimicking guys in trying to fit the role, but really there was a logical explanation to doing that behavior,
Right. Now this is the little shit days, or is this Vivid MC days?
Oh, this has to be little shit days.
Because we go back a little ways, right?
Yeah, of course. I
think the first shows I think we did together was you playing for me at the Apothecary on the rooftop patio.
Okay, yeah, I remember those.
You recall, we did Solid Motion shows up there, and I have a photograph that distinctly stands out, and you have a completely shaved head, and you're wearing a tan, what looks like a jumpsuit.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to dig that one out.
Dig that out. I'd love to find. I love it when people send me photos from.
Yeah, it's a good one, man.
You know what? And I'll say there is an era in my life that's missing. Obviously, since Facebook, I'd say 2006 forward, I'm everything's been logged. But for the Pure Rave days, where I don't know if you're a Pure Rave guy, but that site got hacked. Okay, do you remember when they lost like a lot of their information and everyone lost their pictures?
I do.
As a result of that, I lost like from age 16 to like 20, and that aspect of that part of my life, which was the little shit days. It was the beginning of DCS 905. It was the Vivid Mix CD. A lot of parts of my drum and bass beginnings were in that, and I've lost it all. But it's okay. I live vicariously still through all my friends, and
I'll fish out what I've got left and try and fill in the gaps, man.
Thanks, buddy. With that, I want to ask you, who or what inspired you to start spinning?
Who or what? Okay. Okay, that's a good one. There's a hip-hop DJ who actually did quite well for himself for a bit. I'm not sure what he's doing right now. His name's DJ Sirius, and he was a friend of mine. And back in that, like I said earlier, the Rude Boy mod phase, we kind of were part of that scene. And he used to DJ all the dances. So it was mostly a lot of ska and, a lot of soul, and that was it. That was it. Just, And I'm talking like first, second generation of ska, not the third bullshit stuff like No Doubt and the Boss Stones and all that crap, But anyways,
Hold on. I just sorry to cut you off. Where does Sublime fit into that?
It's crap. Sorry.
Okay, I just want to know. Okay, go on.
If it's anywhere in that third generation, it's absolute shite.
To me, Sublime is in that gray area. They're before the third, but after the second. Like that's what. And I get what you mean. That's why I had to ask. But I totally get you.
It's a fine line, dude. It's a fine line. I mean, like let's take Rancid. Rancid is absolutely appropriately titled. It's terrible. It's Rancid. But Operation Ivy were good.
I get you.
They were able to actually find the edge of taking ska from what it was, from like the Specials and the Selector and Madness, and giving it just a little bit more of an edge without going too far. And what happened is after them is everything just turned cheesy and corny and fucking bullshit.
Goldfinger! Woo!
Sorry. Anyways, we're getting too crazy here.
Go ahead.
Anyways, Dave was his name, still his name. DJ Sirius had to go to the bathroom. Real simple. And I was standing, as I do, up front, staring at the DJ, and he just said, "Yo, come up here. I need you to take over." And I got a crash course on how to use a mixer and 212s. And he said, "Okay, go ahead." And I did. And I just started playing for a few hundred people, and he saw me getting comfortable, decided to go to the bar and have a couple of drinks, and just left me up there for the rest of the night. And this was at the old Rhino bar on Queen Street, which is actually still there to this day, Queen and Dufferin. And that was my first official gig. And I guess always being the person at a club looking at the DJ, thinking to myself, this guy's terrible. Like, what's he doing? Like, you never actually think to yourself, I can do better. Until you actually get up there and you realize that you actually can control things. And reading the crowd and the atmosphere and all the things that are involved in DJing, which, has come up a whole bunch of times in discussion about, planning sets and so on and so forth. When you get up there and you actually do it, you realize, okay, you know what, this is it. So, to answer your question, DJ Sirius was the guy that definitely inspired me to get started. Because that was it. That was my first gig, and I got hooked after that.
Cool, man. Well, big up DJ Sirius. Thank you for bringing us Mr. Brown.
Thanks, man.
What this one? Okay, I got to kind of lead into this a little. I know, obviously, we've known each other a while, and I've known you through different parts of your career, and I've seen you go through highs and lows, and I think we've all experienced parts where we think, okay, this could be it, and then it dies down, and then we go through. I describe it as like almost watching the ocean recede. These big waves come, and then they splash down, and they go back out, and then they come and they splash down, but. Sometimes that wave is bigger than others, and sometimes you're a part of the wave, or sometimes you're just a surfer within it. That's what I feel like in our culture. But
right.
I want to ask you, what is the biggest change you've noticed in our scene or in our culture since you started to where we are today?
Well, first of all, your metaphor is applicable to life in general. It's not just the scene, because everything works that way. We do what we do out of choice. Like everything else, which sometimes is out of necessity, but there's highs and lows with everything. The reason we stick with it is because we love it. You yourself, you've been through a lot of changes throughout your career, and I've been there for a lot of it, and we stick with it because the music's amazing, and that's basically it. But to answer the question, the internet has been probably 100% the biggest thing to affect the music, in good and in bad ways.
Please elaborate.
Well, I'm going to try to be very delicate here.
Hold on, let me stop you for a sec. I just want to put a disclaimer here that the views of Mr. Brown do not I'm just joking. We talked about this before.
Well, do your disclaimer.
No, I ain't doing no disclaimer, and you shouldn't be afraid. Mr. Brown has a reputation to withhold, and he doesn't want to say things that may upset people. So he's afraid he may say something, but he just go ahead.
Mr. Brown does tend to upset people. I've upset a few people this week, actually, but whatever. Truth hurts. Deal with it. Anyhow, you got to think about the culture as a whole, right? With any scene, if you're part of it, I was a skater for a while. I was, like I said, I was part of that whole mod culture. It's like, if you think gang mentality, you have to gain acceptance by your peers before you're able to, I guess, become part of the circle. And you do that through hard work and determination, and basically showing that you're real, that you're here for the long haul. You're not a tourist. A lot of tourists right now, like a lot. But once you get into it, you realize that you have a responsibility as well to sort of keep the cycle going. And the whole common thread between anything of this nature is the hard work that's involved. When you wanted tunes, you had to work hard for the tunes. If you wanted to go to a rave, you had to sometimes take the shuttle bus or take a TTC. I remember going to parties where you'd be on public transit for hours in the middle of the night, walking in 2-3 feet of snow, standing outside before there was anything like guest list or reduced list, and you paid full cover, which could have been up to 40, $50. You didn't care. You just wanted to be part of it. So when you sit back and you look at all these things, you think, man, you really did work hard. And you think about it from like the old man perspective. Back in my day, we used to do, and it's true, because the internet has made things very accessible. You wanted a tune back in the day, you had to meet the producer, you had to get his blessing, and then you would get the DAT or the CD, and then you had to go down to the dub play place, and then you had to cut the dub. And then if you cut the dub, it depends on if they knew you or not. And if they knew you, you'd get a better deal. And if they didn't know you, had to pay full price. And it's just, there was this constant pecking order, for instance. Whether you were, and it wasn't even about getting booked. It wasn't even about that at that stage. It was, can you stand on the stage? Were you able to like do the most menial things? And right now, so much of this stuff is being handed to them, because it's accessible. And it's not their fault. It's just the age that we live in. Things are accessible. We have things like promo lists now, where tracks just get sent to people if you're, I guess, deemed special. Or if you're one of those people and you try hard enough, you go to a torrent site, you can get the tracks that you want without paying for it. There's so many things right now that water down the quality of the music in that sense, that I look at it as not a positive thing, because it's no longer, in that respect, and this is not the best word, special. But the good thing is that it also helps reach further to people who normally would not have access to the music. Back in the day, you had to have a friend who had a friend who had a mixtape, and hopefully you got to borrow it before you were able to, look on the back and find the ecstatic address, go downtown and buy your own cassettes. Or if you're one of those people that went to Cloud9, I don't know. That
Numb, man. I was a numb guy.
You were a numb guy. Well, that's cool. I support numb. That's fine. But anyways, the point is it was difficult if you didn't have access to the music to gain access. And then once you did, you still had to work to maintain it. Now you just go online, go to T.A.F, whatever that station is, or whatever you need to, and it's all right there. And to me, it's, I don't know, it's not as special as it used to be.
I get what I want to add to what you're saying, and while you were saying that, it made me think of myself, which is, I get what you mean about paying your dues. I remember standing outside of parties to flyer. I remember spending a lot of my own money to help promote things that I knew I wasn't going to make anything back on, just to get the names and the people out there. And because of all the work I put in, I got a lot of respect in return, to the point where I knew I wasn't the best MC in Toronto at the time that I was getting the radio spots or some of the bookings I was getting. But when people would ask me, like, yeah, you got a good voice and all, but like, how come I can't get on the air? How come I can't da-da-da? And the only thing I could think is, well, you haven't put in enough work yet. Like, people are only giving me these things because they see how much work I'm doing, and that, like you say, it's more than music to me. Like, this culture is my life, and
right.
I've earned some stripes with you guys because you see that I care, and it's I guess what you were saying, like, for instance, you were talking about how music is much more attainable now because you can go on these promo lists. Whereas I remember going down to the record stores, I would swing by, To the Beat and X Amount and Play the Record, because you guys would get those promo CDs every week with your list of records. And if there was anything worth putting on the radio, I would grab it and we'd go over to the radio. Now, that was a laborious process that nowadays we wouldn't even need to see each other to do that.
No.
It would just be like a download, here it is. And because of that, that lack of investment, I guess, in the music, because it's almost like when you buy something versus when somebody gives you something, you have an investment in it. And because of that, you care that much more about it. It's like if you pay $20 for a CD versus going to a download system and downloading that CD, you care more for the CD that you've paid for. And
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there were times where you would ask for a track, and maybe you didn't get the track you were looking for, but you got another track. You still went and cut that dub, and you still played that track, because out of respect to this person and his ability to make music, and also coupled with the fact that a limited amount of people had this track, you played it. Now it's, when the track gets released, everybody has it. So when is it special to play music? everybody knows it. You know, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, and that's what's
it's just one element of it. I mean, like you got to understand, it's a different time, and no one should be, I guess, blamed for the fact that things are more accessible and a little easier now. But you did make a point about the hard work, and if Toronto was a city as it once was, where we were getting thousands and thousands of people, then the bookings might be structured a little bit differently in terms of who gets picked. But there's so many things that are involved that don't allow that, and therefore, you kind of have to put in the work. You have to. I mean, I don't necessarily, like asking the DJs to push the show because, I'm hiring them to DJ, not promote. But I get that, right? Because, I'm a DJ too, right? I do promote because I get that it's part of it. If the show doesn't do well, then we all fail. We all have to deal with it. The product has to push forward. We all have to team up. We all have to do it together. A lot of people get that. Some people don't. And those are not necessarily going to be the people that you draw for first when it comes time to picking your lineup.
Yeah, totally. And I remember when I started in the scene. I don't want to say names of people, but there were people I would hear that I never understood why they got bookings. You'd hear them on tapes. You hear them, and it's like, this guy sucks. Why is he? But then you got to know him, and you understood that, wow, that was either the first guy to do this, or that's the guy who saved this guy from this, or like there's just such a sense of unity that sometimes the performers, it's secondary to who they are in the scene. And yeah, with that,
Yeah, no,
um,
go ahead.
I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're already at 25 minutes. I said we'd only be 20, so I got a few more questions for you.
I'm easy,
Um,
man. Go ahead.
okay, what's the status right now of Soul in Motion?
Soul in Motion is on a pause, we'll say right now. The last big show that we did was at the government in the main room. It was our 12-year anniversary. It was with Spy and the Brooks Brothers, and we pretty much filled that place to capacity. And it was kind of a good send off. Now, the reason is there's the Soul in Motion. There's three people, obviously Scott Free, DJ Spins, and we're still amazing terms. Those are still two of my best friends, and just from a business perspective, throwing events is a very, very taxing and thankless endeavor. And sometimes you just reach a stage in your life where you have to reassess whether this is still something that you want to do. Soul in Motion was a company that started out doing shows at the Blue Moon and at the Labyrinth Lounge and Apothecary and a lot of different clubs in between, like hundreds. Like we did so many shows over the years, and free shows, $5 shows. The first show we decided to do was bring in E1 from Lifted, who's now Kill the Noise. So I'd met Jake over in Rochester and became friends. So he came over, played for us, and ever since then we started moving up, sort of throwing bigger shows. And it was funny because I was telling a story today at Crash. Remember DJ Crash? He was the one that actually said to me, he goes, now that you're throwing a show with headliners, you're never going to go backwards. You're going to keep doing it. And I'm like, nah, that was just a one-time thing. And sure enough, he was right. He's usually right. And the reason I'm saying this is because the level of involvement gets more intense the more you do shows. And by the end of the 12-year anniversary, which to me was by all means a success, it was kind of to me, I guess, maybe time to try something different. I felt that brand had run its course. Is that it? No, not necessarily that's it. I think the brand was always a very strong brand. I would like to think in many respects we were like probably the top 5 in the city for a while. So I think based on that strength, we could come back. But, at the same time, it was a while ago, right? And you got to think, people grow up, they move on. And maybe it's time for something different. So I've since, obviously, as you know, moved on to other projects, and I focus on that right now. But I guess if the timing is right, we try again.
Good. And you think like people move on and stuff, but at the same time, dude, every summer I go to see my favorite bands, and I get this is a little different, but bands like Velvet Revolver, where they separate from other bands, form super bands. They're great and all, but I still want to see their original bands. I still love that originality. Like, I guess with you guys, I love Brown, I love Spins, I love Free, but I still love when the three of you come together and Sim does what it does. So,
well, I will say this: I don't think any company has been able to. Not that anyone's trying, by the way. I mean, everybody carves their own path, and I support anybody that's serious about the music, and that's 100% true. If you're in it for the music and just that, and you try really hard and you do your thing and you're cool, then I support you, right? But I think in terms of what we did, it was a little different, and I haven't seen anyone do stuff like hand out candy at a drum and bass party, or have video games set up at the front door, or you know what I mean, just give out a bunch of lighters with Soul in Motion stickers on it, or do lemonade stands outside of other parties where you got a flyer if you wanted a glass of lemonade, sure, here's a flyer. Or we do pop-up raves in parking lots across from the Gov. I mean, we did all kinds of madness to get people's attention. And I guess the promo videos that we used to do, with the breakdancing and at Yonge and Dundas Square, the zombie videos, or you name it. We've done everything ridiculous to get attention, and I'm proud of all that, because no one else has done it, and we did it. We did it successfully. So I'm really happy that I had a good team. Plus, more so, and very important, the support of the people around me. Because if you don't have the respect of your peers, then you know what I mean. You're just doing nonsense. So the people who supported our brand, and I mean the DJs, the MCs, the people who basically helped me. I'm blessed because those people were there. Because that's what really helps the whole thing go on.
Definitely, and the door prize stuff that you're talking about, I remember the first time I encountered, I think it was lighters or a whistle or something when I was going into a
We
solo.
did both.
I'm sure you did, but I remember in my head thinking, I haven't gotten something like this since I was at a Hullabaloo. And
exactly.
But here's the thing:
we kind of wanted to do Hullabaloo stuff, but at a drum and bass party.
And that's what I loved. I loved it. It was like, is Anabolic Frolic helping you guys out, or are you guys?
You know what it was? There was a mixtape that was released for AWOL, and if you listen to it, it's GQ and there's Randall and a whole bunch of other people on there. All you hear are horns and whistles. And it's just this constant noise in the background. And it's the hypest shit you've ever heard in your life. Because you can tell there's just a party going on there. And we thought, we're going to record our live sets. And we have a whole bunch of them. There is actually a Mixcloud for Soul in Motion somewhere in the depths of the internet. And if you listen to some of those sets, I mean, we figured, if we want that background, we're going to have to provide it. So we went out to the dollar store and bought these things and just gave them out,
Totally, man. Smart idea. With that, what's in the works for Last Planet?
Last Planet?
Yeah. Are you involved?
Well, I'm not part of Last Planet, so I really can't answer that question.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I thought you were involved with the organization of Last Planet.
No. That's Drew, Hale, and Dylan Weiss. So I support those guys. Those are my homies.
As a matter of fact, Dylan, I think, is going to be at the thing I'm going to. Yesterday, I was talking to the guys from Sweet Sensi. They're throwing
that's another Dylan.
That is another Dylan, but
Dylan and David.
I think the other Dylan is going to be at the thing as well on February 2nd. They're doing a thing, Sweet Sensi Groundhog Day. Have you seen that flyer going around with animal's face on it?
That's with Greg's face on it, right?
Yeah. I think
can't miss that flyer, actually.
Isn't that? I think that's a great flyer. I'm like, that is actually
very good marketing.
Awesome.
Actually.
All right, sorry about that. I thought you were involved with those guys.
No. I mean,
what do you have going on? Because you said you have other stuff going on. What is going on?
Well, myself and Marcus have just launched our new brand, which we're going to be focusing on this year, which is Massive. Massive was the brand basically that brought the New Year's Eve show. So for the last 9 years, I was doing Soul in Motion New Year's Eve on the brand called Come Together. And based on what I've told you about Soul in Motion, it was time to either, carry on or to stop altogether. And for the first time in a decade, enjoy New Year's Eve and just sit at home, fall asleep with Chinese food, right? But that didn't happen. So we started a new company, decided to call it Massive. And New Year's Eve was our first show, and it was a great success. So that is probably the brand that we're going to be focusing on moving forward. So I do still do Forward DnB as well, and that's a brand that I do on my own. I do a lot of shows in conjunction with Destiny, and so there's some things in the works for this year as well. Jungleism, obviously, I do with Marcus, and Church Sundays as well. I do that as well, and I don't know. Detour.
Here, hold on. I'll help you out here a little, Mr. Brown. I actually,
Yeah.
when I put the video up, I blocked a part of my section where I had put all the things that you just mentioned, basically. And I would have asked this had I not blocked it with my video screen.
Right.
But I have here Forward DnB, Detour, Soul in Motion, Prophecy Radio, Destiny Events, and Church Sundays. All the things, as well as Massive, what you mentioned. And I want to say, before I spoke to you and Marcus as well, a friend of mine had mentioned that he really wants me to big you up for doing that. He says it was so cool to go to a warehouse and just feel what it was like to be at a rave again. He hadn't felt that in over a decade. So thank you.
Nice. Well, that's cool. It's good to know.
Well, to me, I was a little confused. I wasn't there on New Year's, so when he was telling me about it, I'm like, yeah, I saw the flyer. It had like every Toronto DJ I've ever heard of on it. And it was going to be in some secret venue. He's like, yeah, no, they're doing some warehouse thing. It's like they're finding different warehouses. And I went, oh, like Compound. And he went, no, it's called Massive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to educate myself a little. So can you tell me more about Massive? What is it? What are you guys going to do now?
So just so you know, Compound was Drew, Lush, Marcus, myself.
Okay.
So we've done 3 events under the Compound brand. 1 year anniversary in the works. Massive is just a branch off of Marcus and myself. Just different vision for with the same concept. So, everyone talks about warehouse parties and how it was back in the day. Everybody talks about back in the day, right? But no one knows other than the old guys telling stories. So we figured, you know what? We're going to go out and get a warehouse, put up all the, all the trouble of getting that sorted out legally, I might add. And then try and recreate it to the best of our ability. And that's basically what Massive is. It's a rave.
Well, and you know what? One thing I can say, because I can really appreciate what you guys are doing. I did it myself. It's not easy. As much as the sound suffers from stock systems and people don't like going to clubs, understand that as a promoter, it's much easier to book a bar and throw a party than it is to do what these guys are doing, starting Raw. And like he said, the legalities, understanding what fire code is, how many paramedics need to be there, what the police need to be, if there's going to be a bar, how that's going to be handled, getting the licensing, making sure everyone's safe, making sure... There are so many things that go into what these guys are doing. I don't know how you're doing it. So
I think if people actually had a little bit of knowledge on the actual trouble that we go into, not to mention the liability, that they'd be a little bit more forgiving when it comes down to the wait to get inside or...
Where are my drink tickets?
What's that?
Where are my drink tickets?
Yeah, that was one of the issues I had to deal with today.
I'm sure it is. You always get those.
We're not getting into that one.
We won't go into that.
We can get into it offline. But
there's always one or two, man. I'll tell you a quick funny story. I threw a party at the old Mad Bar, and I told my girlfriend at the time, she was working the door, listen, stop coming and telling me so-and-so's at the door and he thinks he's supposed to get in free. If they're not on this list, they don't get in free, and that's it, okay? And she's like, okay. So the party's going on. We had a great time. At the end of the night, she says to me, some guy named Flipside showed up, and I told him, if you're not on the list, you got to go. And he said, fuck you, and he left. And I'm like, no, you did not send Flipside away. So I had to put that fire out. But I didn't expect
Well, you know what? The odd time Nat's going to show up, and no one... the newer people are not going to... But you know what, though? Good for her. She did her job.
She did her
That's
job.
her job.
But dude, I couldn't get mad at her, even though I was so mad at her.
Listen, the last thing you want is a scenester working your door, because they're the ones that are going to get the pressure. I mean, you may as well just sit there yourself. How many times have you walked by the door just to check and see how things are going, if they need a break or whatever, and then one of your homies walks up and it's just like, hey, do you want me to pay cover? And you're just like, no, get in. And you think to yourself, if I had just stayed at the bar and let this person do what I paid them to do, this wouldn't have happened. So she did a good job. No offense to Nat, but
He
She did her
wasn't
job.
mad. He wasn't mad. He said he wasn't even mad.
He
Okay.
wouldn't be mad. He gets it. He throws parties too.
And to
So
be honest, it was, I think Dork was like $10 that night. Like, I'm like, really? He wouldn't pay the $10? Ah, forget it. Anyways, the last question I'm gonna get, and then I'll let you go. If you could pick 5 items to put into a time capsule that would encapsulate the Toronto drum and bass scene or the entire Toronto rave culture, what would those 5 items be?
oh, jeez. Okay. You did actually say that this week, so I should have thought about it. 5 items, huh? Okay.
They don't have to be like an item. If you had a, like, somebody said the warehouse, which I was like, okay, you want to put the whole warehouse complex in, like the old Cool House warehouse, okay,
Well, okay. So, okay, I see what you're saying. So, 5 elements that basically encompass our
exactly,
scene.
exactly.
Okay. So, I would definitely say dub plates. I would throw that in there because that was a big part of me when I was starting, for sure. It was one of the few up and comers, we'll say, that went out and pressed dubs. There was a few of us, not many though. You may have to edit this part. It's gonna be a lot of humming and hawing here.
That's okay, buddy. There's no editing. Aaron cannot afford an editor, and
Oh, okay.
dude, even
Aaron's gonna have a lot of dead air then while James thinks
well,
about
no,
this.
okay. I can talk right now. You keep thinking. I'll tell you how bad I am at technology. I had a friend
All right,
come over
perfect.
on the weekend just now to set this up. So at least now, when I talk to you, rather than the people having to just look at my ugly mug, there's a little picture of you that'll show up in the corner, and eventually we're gonna get it to a point where I can do a Skype and both of our faces. It'll be like watching, a Skype conversation. But anyways, so
No,
he's
no one wants to see me.
everybody wants to see you, Brown. But anyway, so he's showing me all this shit. Like, okay, so make sure you got the desktop audio on this, and you got this on that, and da da da. And I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna remember any of this. So he basically has my thing set up right now. So he's like, okay, just click this. And even with that, I've still fucked it up twice. Like,
Amazing.
right? But anyway,
Okay, I got a couple more. So I'm gonna actually make this more personal. These are the things that I've taken away. So we're gonna say dub plates is the first one because it was almost a badge of honor to get them, let alone to play them. Number two, dirty Chinese food, because at the end of every rave, you had to go out and get dirty Chinese food because it was just the end of the night. That was it. That signified what it was. Broken monitors, because let's face it, that's every single weekend. I had another one that was pretty good. I lost it, man. Should have wrote this down.
you're fucking awesome, man. You want me to hold you to only one more? Maybe that'll make it easier. Just think of one more. It's like doing a push-up. Just one more, you know?
Fuck, yeah, I know, man. You're a good spotter, by the way. That's good. Just one more, man. I always push for two whenever somebody says one more, but anyways, it's another story.
That's the next line, though. I get it, and then I go, okay, now one more.
Right, okay.
I can give you ideas. Other people have said things like the whistle, the horn, rave flyers, rave mixtapes. Do you have a favorite mixtape? Maybe one that stands out?
No,
among...
I got one. It was a sticker. Now, this is very superficial and very childish, but that's okay because I'll admit that there was a time where I used to, when you're staring at these DJs, the one thing you'd stare at when they were playing are the record crates. They didn't have, USBs back then, clearly. So the record crates were always littered with stickers. But if you looked at, some of the Toronto guys, the bigger Toronto guys, some of them had stickers that said, it was a red and white sticker, and it had a broken wine glass on it, and it said Fragile, Air Canada. And to me, that was the biggest badge of honor, because you know what that signified? That someone paid your dumb ass to go and play in another city because you were that good. And to me, that was like the brass ring. That was it. If you could get that sticker, then you hit it. You made it. So I remember the day I got my first sticker on my record crate because some weirdo heard that I was good enough to go and play in another city and actually flew me out there. And I got that sticker. I was so proud. I'll tell you. I mean, I was very young in the scene. I'm very, very young, but and immature, of course, because you look at things like that like a big deal. But whatever, I'll admit it. It was a big deal back then. So that sticker, that was definitely something that was very important to me. Was.
Is.
And that's all I got, man.
No, I think that's a great one. And I think that it's almost a trophy to you. And what is success without getting into a deep philosophy here? If you've reached the level of what you were trying to get to, like you said, you were at one point standing at the front of the stage looking at the DJ, admiring his accomplishment, and then there you are trying to follow in the footsteps, yet making your own path and reaching that goal. There is a sense of accomplishment. Now, the realization when you hit it, and life isn't maybe what you thought it would be when you reach that goal, that's where I guess reality sinks in, and you're like, you know what, I love this. I love that I got this, but I thought it would have been different by now. Is it safe to say that?
You can say that about anything. You could, are we happy with where you are in life right now? Are you happy with whatever, anything that you could look at as a goal to be attained? Are you happy with where you are? I mean, most people would say, no, I'm still trying. And with this, regardless of what you do, like, the old saying, you don't rest on your laurels. You never say, yeah, I did it. No, you keep going, and that's why we keep going, because it's not really a race or a goal to be achieved. I mean, we do this because this really is the best music. I mean, like, I love the stuff that I came from, but this is the best music ever, and no one's going to tell me different. And I push this sound, whether it's on the radio or whether it's through artists that I support or music that I play, because it really is amazing. It'll change your mood in a second. Drum and bass is the best thing ever. And we talked about this the other day, and how if you let the music actually do its thing, you don't need alcohol, drugs, or people. You can just go in and heal just from the music alone. And people need to understand that. And that's why I do it. I mean, you try to, balance the politics and all the other bullshit, which is infinite. But at the end of the day, that's the motivation. Because people need to actually hear this. They need to see it. And whether it's me or whether it's you or whether it's somebody else that could do it, we all bring something different to the table. And that's why, again, it's the best music, because when you take everything and wrap it all up, it's an experience.
It
and
is.
If I can be part of that for somebody else, like somebody was for me, then cool. You know what I mean? That's all I'm trying to do, is just, I guess, spread the word, right? So to speak.
Yeah, man. And it is. It's a community. I've said it. I'll say it again. If you're listening to jungle drum and bass music, it is more than a music. It's a way of life, and we need more than listeners. We need promoters. We need DJs. We need MCs, producers. We need everything. So, it's not like rock music where you could just be like, yeah, I love Metallica, and put the poster on your wall. Go out there and be the next Metallica.
You're right, for sure. I mean, listen, just to cut you off for 2 seconds.
Go ahead.
The massive is myself and Marcus, but by no stretch were we the only two people. We had people watching over the ticket vendors. We had people handling art design. We had people dealing with the set creation. People were dealing with, social media. Like, you hire these people, or these people do it out of love, and they're all coming together and working together to make it happen. So it's not just the promoters that are putting these things together, or the DJs that are coming to perform, or the MCs that are coming to do their thing. There's a ton of people behind the scenes that all work together because they believe in the same thing that we do. And that's why it's very difficult to get the right people, actually. But when you do have a team, and I'm very blessed with the team that I have, and it's a team because they don't work for me, and we work together, and thank God for them, because these are the people that make it happen. You know what I mean? Like, it's a community. It has to be. It's the only way this is going to work.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
And before I let you go, I just want to ask you, please share with us where we may be able to see you in the next week, 2 weeks. You got any shows coming up?
You can come down to the office and hang out with me there.
Yeah,
but,
that's happening.
That's about it. Actually, right at the moment, thank goodness, I've got a little bit of a break. So I've got nothing in the immediate future right now. There's a couple gigs that have been confirmed already, but I can't tell you about them. So.
Well, how about church Sundays? Is that still happening? Are we not checking?
Yeah, absolutely. Church Sundays goes down at Baseline Bar every single Sunday night.
There we go.
And
Prophecy?
I will be doing, I think, middle of February. It's supposed to be going to Ottawa also, middle of February.
Mm-hmm.
But
how
aside
about
from that,
Prophecy Radio? Can we still hear you on the Prophecy?
Oh yeah, I do a show once a month. I've got Schematic and Polaris, Scott Free, Love Hurts, Gremlins, Polaris. I think I said Polaris. I'll say it twice. We all rotate, so we all manage to do a show a month or so.
You know what?
It goes on every single Sunday night, 8 to 10, 89.5.
Wicked. You saying Polaris twice, I before I let you go, I got to rewind for a sec here. You said Medicine Muffin twice when you were talking about some of the first DJs, and I have to say he is worthy of 2 big ups.
Sure is.
And I don't know, did you ever do this where you went up to who you thought was Medicine Muffin to say, hey, big ups, and it turned out to be Capital J's brother?
No.
Do you? Okay.
To me, they look completely different.
Well, dude, and here's the thing is that when I did it, he laughed and went, "You're like the 3rd guy to do that tonight." And I'm like, "Are you serious? You're not Medicine Muffin?" He's like, "I am not. I'm Jay's brother, man." And I'm like, "Okay."
That's too loaded, bro. I'm gonna leave that one alone. You know where I'm gonna go with that.
Oh, I know where you're gonna go. Probably has something to do with some H&M or something.
Nah.
Anyways, with that, buddy, thanks for taking the time to chat. I will talk to you soon, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Take care, James.
All right, bye.
There he is, Mr. Brown. Thanks a lot, buddy, for chatting with me. That's the longest one we've had, 51 minutes. Really enjoyed that. I hope you guys did too. Yeah, so Mr. Brown, he's been around for a long time, and as you could tell in our conversation there, he knows me pretty well, probably better than I think he does. But yeah, so we've got more guys coming in, spacing these things out because I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed with them, and at the same time I've got to get my stuff in between. But thank you as always to you guys for sharing yourselves with me, and until next time, peace out.